Welcome to the podcast, Wait, What Do You Do Again? Where we talk to everyday people doing amazing things. I'm your host, Megan DeFord. Let's go. Hey, can I ask you a favor? If you're enjoying the show, can you rate, review, subscribe, send to your friends? It really does make a difference, and I would appreciate it. Thanks so much. Today's guest is Mel Harvard, founder of Harvard Inc. Mel is a writer, ghostwriter, and publisher. Enjoy. Mel, thank you so much for being here today. You are the owner of Harvard Inc., and you are a ghostwriter, which is so cool. So what does
No, it sounds so sexy and mysterious. Ooh, ghostwriter.
Ghostwriter. So what is a ghostwriter?
We are the ghost in the machine, I guess. So, given that there are lots of amazing people in the world who have great ideas, but not everybody is good at writing or languages. Not everybody has the time to do it. So that's where ghostwriters on the whole come in. It's a little bit of I don't know how to say this, maybe a gray area, because it's misunderstood in that people think, oh, you as an author or as the conceptualizer of whatever these ideas are didn't really do the work because now you've hired somebody else to do all the dirty work for you. But that's not how it works. The legitimate and ethical way that ghostwriting works is that you work very closely with someone from the very beginning to conceptualize their thoughts, what they want. It involves a certain level of therapy, I suppose, and very good listening skills to help them come out with what it is that they really need and want. And then to get that onto paper, because for me, writing is like breathing. I hardly have to think about it. There's a little bit of competition with AI these days. That's also quite a nice tool for us ghostwriters. And I can talk about that later if you want to. But absolutely, for me, the thrill is to work with somebody to help them get their story done, whatever it is, because they don't have the skills or the time or the resources to do so. And then that story gets out and hopefully adds value to the world. So there is that aspect. It's not, writing is not a zero-sum game. There's never too many books.
Absolutely. I agree with that. And you have written over 100 books. And
actually, I counted. I think it's closer to the 200 mark these days. And I was like, oh my goodness. Because I'm actually a slightly sort of side story here, side quest. I'm actually late diagnosed adult ADHD. So endemically, we aren't the kind who finish things.
Right.
And funnily enough, I hadn't actually ever finished one of my own books. I had done one many years ago, but that's another story. But I'd never done one of my own for me. But when it comes to working with clients and working on deadlines, and I think it's maybe the way I approach it, but that sticking to that sort of deadline and generate anything between 3 to 10,000 words a day on a deadline to get a client's idea onto paper actually works very well for me. I think the motivator might be money.
Nothing wrong with that. Nothing wrong with that.
Nothing really. There's always bills, as we know.
And then, so what is the process like when you're working with a client? And I suppose the first question before that is, do clients find you, or do you work with publishers, or is it a combination? How do clients find you?
So to answer this fully, maybe we take a slight step back, and please stop me if I get too long-winded. I come from I was first of all, many years ago, a journalist. So I went straight from, in fact, I was still writing my final exams at university when I walked into a journalism job because I didn't have any other, I had to support myself. So that was what I had to do. There was no ifs or buts about it. It's like you had to start earning a salary now. So I did. And I was very lucky to train and be mentored by a really interesting lady called Angela Bolle-Payton, who headed up the Your Family magazine in Durban, South Africa. And So she took me under her wing and she trained me up as a features writer and a sub editor. And she was a most amazing woman, wore the most fabulously colorful caftans too. Anyway, so that's where I started with this. Went into corporate, ended up creating an education and training side shoot company as part of a bigger group. Got sick of that. Opened up my coaching company just before COVID, which then COVID happened and no one understood about this lovely online thing that we have now.
Right.
And went, "Oh, what else can I do? Hang on, I can still write." And I've been put in touch with an online writing platform that hired freelancers, and they basically were like a bit of a writer farm. So they got the writers together and made sure that we were of the right standard, and they brought the clients in. And so
Interesting.
for a while, especially during lockdown, that was very useful because if without having to worry about growing a company and bringing in work, I just had to put my name down for whatever projects were sitting there in their inbox, and invariably would have 3 or 4 books running at the same time and would be doing after about 30, on average 30,000 words per book.
Wow.
And so they're an agency based in Canada. There are a few of these agencies around, and it possibly for a person wanting to start or dip their toe in the ghostwriting pool, it's a nice place to start because it teaches you, if you didn't know already, how to work to deadline, how to work with clients. They don't allow you direct access. You message via their platform, so you never actually get to know exactly who your clients are, which is but that's
Interesting.
obviously how they protect
Yeah.
their whatever. So I did that for a year or two, and that was fun. That sort of brought in the bacon. I put
Yeah.
the beans on the table, and I learned a lot during that process. But that was very braid line stuff. You're literally getting paid. I don't know if you're getting paid $1 for every 100 words, it's a lot. And that, bearing in mind that the good ghostwriters can make anything up from $15,000 upwards per book.
Wow.
So if you're thinking like $1 for every 100 words, you may be getting maybe $400 a book. It's peanuts,
Right.
but it's a starting place. And, I'm not sure I'm not sure if I'm still on question. Please, this is adult ADD. You must just bring me back if I
No,
if I feel.
you are, because I was asking how did you find them and like how did you
Yeah,
find clients?
yeah, yeah.
And it's interesting that you didn't have direct interaction with them because one of the
Yeah.
things that I was curious about is how do you capture a client's voice and
Mm.
their ideas and also meld your voice and creativity with it.
And
But that's really
we did
interesting.
have direct interaction, but it was always through some sort of a IT wall, if you like. So
Right.
we never we had to we were behind a pseudonym. The client was whoever they, but we never got to get their private emails or contact details.
Sure.
Obviously, this agency wants to protect their own back. They don't want us to run away with their clients, etc., etc. So that was what they did. That's how they did it. So that was a way to start. Anyway, it gave me
Hmm.
lots of experience, and I wrote many books that way, and it basically, as I say, covered the bills.
Hmm.
But then, as things must and do, it evolved. People got to know what it was I was doing, and knowing me, knowing my background in journalism and whatever, referrals started to happen. And my very first own private ghostwriting job literally was with me saying to the gentleman, "Look, I'm a newbie, so if you use me, you're a guinea pig. Do you mind?" And he was, "No, you've been referred by somebody who has given you a great character reference, and I get a very good sense that you will look after me." And he wasn't wrong.
Hmm.
And I did, and that was the beginning. It was a book on IVF and fatherhood, of all things. And so that was an interesting place to start. And so I used my learning that I'd had for those few years with this agency in Canada to then evolve how I did things. So the way, and most of my clients, I think the main question was, how do you find your clients these
Hmm.
days? So I dropped the agency work pretty quickly because I just felt a little bit like I was in a mill. And after leaving corporate, if you're going to go freelance, you want to have, yeah, that sort of agency work. feels very much like you're being put through a little factory system,
Yeah.
and it's not well paid. So,
Yeah.
so so the referrals started snowballing. People got to know what I was doing, and then I. This is a bit of a love story too, but I met up with uh, a gentleman who I'd had a crush on since I was 12. And he came back to the country because I'm in South Africa.
Uh-huh.
And the two of I got rather interested in each other in our conversations, which were held a lot of the time, funny enough, in my swimming pool because it was summer and it was something like 35 degrees Celsius. So it was like, would you like to come and swim in my pool? Okay. Would you like some juice too? Hang on, are we still 12?
I love it.
Anyway, but it was fun because we had this sort of history. We'd been to the same school and all that. And so we got talking and there was other interest going on. But around the business side, he was, but Mel, you're so good at this now. Why are you just doing this dog work? Why don't you expand it? And why don't you start bringing in more of your own clients and open your own company rather than running as a sole proprietor and pull together all your publishing knowledge?
Mhm.
Because I didn't only have the ghostwriting, I had quite a bit of, by that point, I think I'd written about 9 books on how to publish for ghostwriting clients. And I'd done a lot of research and I'd dipped my toe in the water with the 1 or 2 clients who'd asked me to help them. And I was starting to go, actually, this is something that's pulling all my skill sets together nicely. And then he pushed me over the edge and said, start doing it properly. And so I did. And that's where Harvard Inc. came from.
Wow.
So it's, yeah. And and now it's a little bit, I think most of my clients come from referrals.
Yeah.
It's actually a really good place to be because it means that you're doing something right, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And what makes a good client for you being the ghostwriter?
Somebody who really knows who they are and what their message should be, especially someone who's passionate about whatever their ideas are. If they really are, if it's authentically passionate, you get those clients who go, look, I just want to make passive income, and can you just do me a book on parenting, for
Mhm.
example? And you go, okay, fine. And our stance, and there's 3 of us now on the Harvarding team, our stance is
Mhm.
very much we will support any book idea if it's going to add value to the world.
Love that.
I've been approached by people who want to write sort of revenge books where they want to just tear somebody else apart, or they want to. I had one recently who wanted me to help him write something on dark psychology and how to manipulate people. And I was like, I'm so sorry. That's not a lovely idea, and we don't want to do it. We just don't. We does not know. We're not going to do
Is
that kind of.
is that a fellow South African who's now in our country making the news a
No,
lot?
my client base is all over. I mostly work internationally. I have a few South African clients. In fact, one of my most recent, most lovely projects was for a ex-Congolese lady
Mm.
who had been in the refugee camps and was her story. And it was more of a co-writing than a ghostwriting because she had a lot to contribute, but she's just a very dynamic, busy lady in her own right. And I helped to draw out her story and put it in a story format that is easy to read, put it that
Yeah.
way.
Yeah.
And there were loads and loads of messages of motivation and how to of resilience. That whole thing of how to get up one more time than what you
Mm.
pushed down. And those, I'm actually getting goosebumps, which I won't show you because it's not pretty. But those kinds of projects are just, they're just so cool to work with
Yeah.
because you know that not only is she having a catharsis because she's getting a lot of stuff out and working through memories and issues that she had because she's writing her memoirs in effect,
Mhm.
but it's giving a really good message of hope to people who go, if she can do that, I can do this.
Yeah.
Hello, kitty.
Coconut says
Mine
hello.
are all outside, crying outside the door.
And I was going to ask how, after so many publications, you keep it fresh, but it must be so fascinating, actually. this example is so different than, no, you
Yeah.
didn't write the book, but someone coming to you about dark psychology. You must have such a wide range of topics that come to you.
So obviously, I would have certain skill sets and areas that I know more about. I wear a few hats. So I'm also trained. I've got two psychology degrees,
Hmm.
and also a professional life coaching diploma.
Hmm.
I love the human brain and the mind and how it works. So that kind of thing is great for me. I was in an education and training company for nearly 25 years where we taught management and leadership. So that's another skill set. Entrepreneurship goes with that. Parenting, because I have two who are just about a lot. My youngest is in his last year at school, and I've raised a few others besides, which weren't mine. um, yeah. So there obviously are topics I know more about, but sometimes it's actually easier to engage with a topic I don't know much about because there's research and it can be fun. I'm a bit of a lazy ghostwriter in that I'm not going to take a book on technical mathematics or something
Right.
like that. In fact, I was very nasty. We got a commission where it was for education and training material, funnily enough. And there was a whole module on it was fundamental mathematics, but it was dipping into things like binary and then and I gave it to my partner because he's part of the business now. I said, you've got this training facilitation background and whatever, and don't you want to do this, write these qualification materials? Here's the thing. It's like binary. No, I'm like, I'm sorry. It's your problem. Just do it.
Just do it.
But one of the perks of ghostwriting is that often you will dip into things you wouldn't normally have. So while you're writing and suddenly the chapter or the topic that you have to dig into is something you don't know a lot about, you can spend some time really going down that rabbit hole, but you're allowed to, you're getting paid for it to
Yeah.
find out more. And as I say, I do have good research skills. Often I get asked some very strange questions by friends. Can you tell me this? I'm like, why are you asking? Because Mel, you just know. I'm like, no, I don't. I just know how to find out.
And I bet the background and the base in journalism really helps you in
It
terms of that
does.
investigation and curiosity and research.
Knowing the right questions to ask.
Mm,
Yeah,
yeah. What
absolutely.
what has been the most, I was about to say off topic, but that's not the right way to say it. What has been the most far afield topic that you've written on that you weren't expecting?
Oh Lord, it was probably it was a book I took on when maybe business was a bit slow, and I thought, oh, I need to have to be doing something. I can't sit idle. And it was a book on I think it was chair yoga, exercise regimes for seniors, and which wasn't outside. I also, so many years ago, I used to do all the health and welfare and alternative health pages on the magazine. So I had that background, and it's an interest of mine. And but exercise routines, oh my lord! So then I had to go and I had to really dig into sports science to a large degree to go what is safe to do, how do we actually work out this these routines so that they are unique to this writer, but and they're still actually scientifically and backed and safe to do and work. And so that was a little bit of a mind squeeze, but it wasn't too bad. I managed.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. That's great. And so you're in South Africa. Were
Mm.
you born and raised in South Africa?
Yes, I was born in Addington Hospital back in the day when government hospitals here weren't too bad. And then I moved to Cape Town over 30 years ago and I made a beautiful life for myself there and was loving it. But I'm back in the KwaZulu-Natal area because of parents. They got old and needed extra help, and I'm the last kid in the country. I was like,
Gotcha. Yeah.
okay, but that's fine because I'm living in a most beautiful area. It's called Thousand Hills.
Mhm.
And literally, you stand and you look out, and it looks like you're looking at a thousand hills. And right now, the sun's going down, and it's misty, and it's just you feel like you're in a fairy tale
Oh,
world. It's absolutely, and it's so green out here. So in terms of writerly inspiration, it's perfect.
Yeah, I was going to ask how two questions. The description of living by the sea, surrounded by books, your cats, and
Yeah,
writing, how does
yeah.
that influence your writing?
Well, nature for me is a complete grounding thing.
Mhm.
So as writers, I think there's even a meme joke about taken from that vampire movie. What was it? What was that movie where they glittered in the sunshine? Twilight series, I think.
Oh, yes.
And so there's a scene in the movie where she's saying that she knows that Edward's a vampire. She goes, "You're cold to the touch.
Yeah.
You don't have your skin is white, and you're a vampire." So they took that and they twisted it for writers, and it's like, you never leave the house. You're never in the sunshine. You're cold to the touch. You're very gray. I'm like, you're a writer, and like,
You're a writer. I love it. That's great.
and it's really, I know as a holistic therapist and all of that as well on the side, I know that you have to have a balanced life. And I work for myself, and I still have days where I get up at like 4:30 or 5 in the morning, and I'll sit in front of this computer and I'll look out, I'll go, oh, it's dark again already, and I haven't even looked at the sunshine. I haven't gone for a walk in my garden. I haven't petted my cats.
Yeah.
But that's part of entrepreneurship too. It's you stress versus distress. You're working for yourself and you're passionate about it, and sometimes you can get absorbed by the work.
Right.
But I'm getting better at the life work balance thing. It's like I'm working for myself. Okay, I am a hard taskmaster, but I can let myself walk outside in the garden for half an hour. I think I better do that.
Yes. I
Yeah.
work from home during the day, and it is funny. I run in the morning with other
Mm,
women, but that's
mm.
at 5:30 in
That
the
helps.
morning. Yeah, and some days it's the same thing. I'm like, you haven't talked to anyone else. Like you talk to your cats and that's it. Like you need to go to the grocery store or something and have human
Mm, mm.
interaction.
Yeah, yeah.
And what is the publishing scene like in South Africa?
It's very different to the rest of the world. I don't know, and maybe I'm terrible for saying this, but it always feels like we're a couple of years behind what's happening anywhere else in the world. So if you travel overseas and you come back here, you're like, wait, what? Oh,
Mm,
goodness gracious. Anyway, so book distribution here. So I work mostly internationally, but
mhm,
I do have some local clients.
mhm.
And I have to explain to them, look, okay, so for your book on an internet, we'll have an international strat, but we'll also look locally, because locally, to get books into the local bookstores, you have to go via certain book distributors, for example.
Mm,
Ebooks are fine. Ebooks you can download from Amazon KDP or whatever, no matter where you are in the world, and that's straightforward. But when it comes to printed material, and we don't, I think our book industry here is not really geared towards the indie
mm,
publisher or the self-publishing, and that's most of my clients are people who don't want to. I'm not a Random House or Penguin or one of these large traditional publishing names at all. I'm helping those people who want to keep control of their books. They want to keep the copyright. They want to keep the artistic control. They want to keep most of the royalties.
right.
Those are the people I'm helping. And here in South Africa, I have to say that the system, the infrastructure isn't there yet where it needs to
Mhm.
be for indie writers, but I'm working on it as we speak to
Oh,
try
that's
and
great.
just to raise the awareness of just things like local printers to go, okay, look, there is this market of people who want to to perhaps even just set up something so that they have a website and that they can set a person can pay for the book and then the order goes through to the printer and the printer just prints and sends the book.
Right.
Now, in the rest of the world, that's fairly straightforward. Here, it's not quite there yet. Maybe I'll be revolutionary in helping people set up these frameworks a bit better.
Yeah.
Well, let's see.
Yeah. And like, what do you often see first time clients? What are some of the mistakes that people come to you with? Or a different way to think about it is, how can clients be most successful when they're coming to work with a ghostwriter? What makes a good, successful relationship? How much, I know we talked about passion, but how much of the idea needs to be fleshed out? And how does that work for a first time author?
I think for a first-time author, getting clear on what your book goals are and how involved you want to be. And I've got nothing against someone who comes to me and says, look, I'd like to write a book about this is my idea, but I really can you just do most of the work and just come
Mhm.
back to me with the book outline and all of that. And if the work's good, then I'm happy with it because there are look, there's a subset of people, and I think I've seen people online promoting this whole passive income through books, which to be honest, probably isn't. It really depends on the book market's very fickle.
Yes.
So you can make money out of books, yes, and there are ways to do that, but it's not as simple as just getting a book written and popping it up onto Amazon KDP.
Mm.
Okay. But you do get those clients who just go, look, I feel that I'd like these books to be out. Can you help me do most of the work? And I'll just check it. So we get that. But those authors who go, look, here's my idea and work with me, those are the ones I love the most. It's not hard. If you're employing a ghostwriter, that isn't me because I know the ropes and I will work with the author to make sure that their idea is realized. But if you're hiring a ghostwriter, any other, you need to really be very clear on what their process is. You need to be clear on what your deliverables are and really working on that book outline upfront. You can do that with the ghostwriter, probably should, but to be very clear of who your target readership is, why you're writing the book, what are the pain points or the problems you're going to address in the book, whether it's fiction or non-fiction, even doesn't really matter. And then in what's going to go into each chapter, and very specifically, chapter 1 through 10, and each one is literally a list of bullet points of in this order. This is the hook. This is the meat of the chapter. This is how we're going to close it. These are the practical elements of the chapter, or the how-tos, or the exercises, or whatever it is you're going to put in there. But to be very specific, so that by the time that ghostwriter starts to actually write the book, they're following a very clear path that you as the author have gone, I am happy that my name, or even sometimes quite often they'll use a pseudonym, but I'm happy to back this project. This is what I want. As a ghostwriter, there's nothing worse than having a client who works with you on that process. You get through the outline, they say, that's great. And then 2 weeks later, no, I want to change like this, and I want to move chapter 3 to chapter 1, and I don't like this anymore. I'm so sorry, you've signed off on the outline. Because
Right.
to go back and rewrite a book is not a small thing.
Yeah, no, it's not. I can only imagine. And then,
That's quite motivating.
yeah. And it's so once you get to the end and it's at a point where it's time to publish, what is that process like?
So once, okay, so my process is working. So it's this kind of just discussion with the author. So we get online and we have a couple of chats around their book vision, their book goals, what they're trying to achieve. I've recently just helped someone. We occasionally take on pro bono or whatever work just because it adds. It's what we decide to do. So I've helped a specific person with the book. They were retired, so they didn't have a lot of resources. But their book, they actually wrote it mostly. So I didn't have to do the ghostwriting. I just said, okay, fine, I'll step in. I'll do the developmental and line copy edits, make sure everything flows right. There's no plot
Mhm.
holes, and help them bring it to print. And that was a great experience. But normally, though, if it's from the beginning, we will do the interviews, we will create a book outline, which then the author approves. And then we go into a stage where we create a live document where they can go in at any time and they can literally watch us as we're typing the words.
Mhm.
They can't change the words because that would be a recipe for disaster. But they can leave comments like, "Oh no, I don't like this," or "I do like that," or "Can you take this out?" or "Can you add more there?" And we love working like that because that means by the
Yeah.
time we've finished writing, that it's what everybody wants. Like
Yeah.
we feel it meets a certain professional standard, and they feel it's got their message across in the way that they want. Then the book goes for editing, and it goes through at least 2 or 3 other sets of eyes because, especially as a ghostwriter, I'm also a trained editor. And
Right.
I'm not going to try and edit my own work because I'm not going to see it. Your brain blocks out. The person been looking at something for a long time. It starts to gap fill and you don't actually see errors. So then you have to have other people edit it for you. So we have editors on staff, on team, and a few freelance ones who work for us. And we'll put it through that process, send it back to the author to go, okay, final changes. Are you happy? Sign it off. And then once we are happy with all the words, we start with the interior formatting. So that's making it look like a book. It's not as simple as just printing out a couple of A4 pages. You've got to make the left and the right-hand side pages. It's a whole trim size formatting. I've got designers.
Sure.
I've got designers. I've done it myself a few times, so I understand the process myself, but I've got people who specialize in it and they sit and they make everything look very pretty. And then once they've got that, then we can know the final page numbers. We can know how thick the book is going to be. And there's a little bit of client liaison there. So sometimes this client goes, no, I want the book to be 5 by 8 or 6 by 9 inches. It depends on genre. This gets technical, but we have those conversations. We finalize cover designs. We do the full, like the back cover with the book blurb. So that's all those words that promo the book at the back, and the author's bio, whatever else. We get them the ISBN numbers, which is basically your sales. Oh, it's like a legality for books. I don't know if you know what an ISBN is, but authors need them for their books,
Yes.
one per format. We engage with things like copyright. So I recently had, I still have a client, although he finished the work for him, he's starting his next book project with us soon, that he wanted to put extra copyright onto his book because he just was nervous. And I said, you are protected, but yes, we can. And we've done all of that for him through the US copyright government agency and all of that. So there's lots of moving parts. But at the end of it, you end up with something that you can send to your printers and they can print as a tangible hard copy book. And you have an ebook you can upload. And then the real work starts because then you have to decide, how are we going to market the book?
Right.
Where do we want to sell it from? And there's lots of things around that needs to be thought about.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I do help on request with that and I do advise around it. But I prefer to be involved in the book creation and polishing side, not so much the marketing side.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, you can't avoid it. You tend to get sucked into that too. So there you go.
Yeah. It's interesting because it's so all-encompassing, right? It's the genesis to getting it out and marketing and just everything, soup to nuts. How does it work at the big publishing firms? If you're someone who writes a book, whether you're doing it directly or have a ghostwriter or whatever, h- how do the big firms ever find an author? Like, how does that work?
I think those larger traditional publishers have to have a bit more of a rigorous process in terms of choosing books because they're in a position as well where they can put resources in. So if they find a book and it really comes down to finding books that will sell. So
Hmm.
those large publishers will sit with hundreds of books in their inbox
Hmm.
and they'll have people whose sole job is to read these books and
Right.
decide, is this book saleable or not? To
Gotcha. Yeah.
even get into that inbox is a heck of a mission. And quite often, especially internationally, you need to go through agents and you need to
Hmm.
write query letters and all of that. And if you're a first-time author, to get in there, you're going to have a really well-written book, really
Hmm.
well-polished book. As I say, the book industry it's not what it was 100 years ago. 100 years ago,
Sure.
if you wrote a book, everyone was excited and you probably could sell a couple of copies very easily. Now, I think there's something like, I'm sure my figures are slightly out already, but 4,000 books uploaded to Amazon KDP alone per day. So you have to
Wow.
compete. If you're going to go traditionally, it does take a lot longer. You have a lot less say over how that book looks and feels in the end. So, once they'll have their editors go through it and they'll make changes, and you won't always be able to say, no, I hate that. Don't
Right.
you dare do that to my book. They will do what they feel is going to work for the book. And because they are paying you often in advance or whatever, you're tied in monetarily and you're relying on them and their networks of influencers and media and distributors and as well. They would
Yeah.
follow very much the same process I do, but on a macro scale.
Yes, yeah. And it was funny when you were talking about the real time reading and commenting and thinking about, I don't know if you use Google Docs or whatever you use, but it's interesting to think about, and maybe you know this, how did ghostwriters work prior to this? Would they send pages that they wrote to the client each day, or was it just certain check-ins? I can imagine having someone in
It's
real time is
amazing to think
helpful.
about it. What I'm doing now wouldn't have been possible maybe 20
No,
years ago.
no.
Um, in fact, I've always loved the written word, and from tiny, I think one of my first memories was sitting in the back of my mother's car. I always had a pencil and something to write, like a little notebook, writing my little stories because she was always in the shop, and we were like, oh God, waiting in the car. What do we do? Okay, I'm going
Oh,
to write a book now, because you
yeah.
kids sit here and behave like, oh Lord, I won't be long. I'm like, right, whatever, okay. So, but the message I got back then, and I'm a bit older, so I was a 1970s baby. I'm in my 50s now,
Mhm.
and back then it was like, you cannot make money writing. Okay.
Right.
And that goes for ghostwriting too. You can, but only if you get found by one of the bigger publishers. And that was true. But now with the internet and the digital world, it's opened it up in a beautiful way,
Yeah.
for everybody. So yeah, that wasn't possible then. I'm not sure how ghostwriters did it. It would have had to be face to face, sitting doing interviews or on the phone with their author and sending
Right.
pages backwards and forwards. It wouldn't have been easy at all. No.
Yeah. Yeah. It's just amazing how drastically our world has changed in a relatively short amount of time. Just like this. I'm in South Florida, you're in South Africa, and
The
we're just
thousand
chatting.
hills.
Yeah, easy.
Yeah.
And so, can we talk about the books that you're writing at all, or are you keeping that to
Yeah,
yourself?
that's a bit of an interesting story. And especially because I'm also therapy trained and stuff, and I look at myself with a bit of an eye roll and thinking, really, you do this for other people, but why not for yourself? So I did post divorce, and this is about, oh goodness, over 15 years ago now,
Mhm.
write a very cathartic, and this is one of the nice things about writing. Creativity in writing is not just to publish, and it can be healing and energizing and can actually be, in my opinion, way more helpful than even a therapy session or a meditation session. You get those words out, you feel better. So anyway, post divorce, I wrote a book called Men: The Dirty Truth. And
I love this.
it was funny. It was very tongue in cheek, and it was whatever it was. And but back in those days, I didn't really understand the publishing world like I do now. And I was just this little girl. And I went and I found a publisher, but they were a subsidy publisher. And really, at the end of the day, I believe my book sold over $40,000 worth of book in the States, but I never saw a cent of it. And when I tried to track them down, it took me to an office that wasn't an office. And that was a very interesting learning curve for me.
Mhm.
So anyway, I moved on with life and carried on because in those days I was still running a corporate training company and all that. And then obviously got more into the book world in the last 10 years and learned some lessons there. What was the question? Sorry.
Oh, I'm sorry that happened to you. That's awful. But
Yeah, it was awful.
uh,
My own books. Oh,
yeah.
okay. I'm back on topic. So then it became a case of writing for other people, but really because I'm a single mom as well, of two beautiful boys, but it really became a case of doing what made the money quickest. So that was
Sure.
one of the reasons I was ghostwriting, because it did pay. If you could write fast enough, you could earn fast enough, and I could. So I did. But then, of course, the question started of like, Mel, you've written so many books for the people. Why haven't you done another one for yourself? And I'm like, I don't know. And I sat with that for a few years going, what is my block? And I think it was a little bit of fear. It's one thing to write for somebody else. It's easy, actually, to do that for somebody else. You don't have the same emotional investment. To do your own thing is a different story.
Yes.
So I had lots of books I'd written and done nothing with, or like mostly finished. Lots of those kinds of projects. And eventually I decided, strangely enough, this year in January, I said to my partner, I'm putting out a book and I'm doing it before the end of the month. And he's like, no, wait, we have to have a pre-launch. I'm like, no, I have to. This is mental. I have to do it now.
Right, right.
So I did, but it's a bit of a different. I did do it under a pseudonym because I have other other books that I want to do under my own name, which are kindly are more professional and of a serious nature. But this was a completely fun book that I did under. I don't mind sharing it. It's called Practical Magic, a 33-day crash course for beginner witches. I did it under the pseudonym of Belladonna Darkmoon, but it was such
I
fun. It was
I
such
love
fun to
this.
do.
I love this.
I have launched my own book, and yes, I'm getting more learning. Yes, it's not that I haven't been through this with so many other clients of launching books and doing it, but doing it for myself, yes, it's different. And it's
Yeah.
fun, and I'm so glad I finally bit that bullet.
Yeah.
Anyway,
Yeah. It's such a vulnerability of putting yourself out there,
yes.
not behind someone else. That's amazing. So
Well, I kind of
congratulations.
am
Yeah.
still behind a pseudonym, but yes, and I'm not scared to say that's me. I'm
Yeah.
just,
Yeah.
in terms of readership, if I write, if I decide to, because I have also a lot of interest in psychology and therapy related things, if I decide to do something like that or something more business related, then I'd use my own name, Melanie
Mhm.
Harvard, for those books. You don't want to confuse your readership and go, hang on, she's writing these witchcraft books and now she's writing something on business leadership. What?
They're probably more connected than people think, but
No, I'm manifesting your business dreams, hey?
yeah, yeah, exactly, exactly. And what kind of books do you like to read for pleasure?
Oh no, God, this is a little embarrassing. And funny enough, I was having this conversation with a teenager yesterday. My son, my 17-year-old, does sword fighting training, and it's not with those little rapiers like you see in France. It's proper
Right.
learning how proper sword fighting. Anyway, so and I was sitting there killing time. I was chatting to one of the teens that was sitting on the side about this, and I was saying, no one will believe that for I come across as quite intellectual and well read and all, and yes, I have read a lot of the greats and all that, but I don't care about that. They
Yeah,
were lovely. Some of them weren't. But to relax, I read things like Regency Bodice Rippers and
love it.
fantasy,
Yeah,
and because I'm reading to relax.
yeah,
So I read for work too, but that's different.
yeah.
So,
That's fun.
I have my mum going, I can't believe for someone as intelligent as you're reading this bodice ripper. But I'm like, please leave, stop lecturing me, please.
Leave me alone. Yeah. And it's nothing different than I'll watch trash TV shows sometimes when I just want
Mm,
brain candy. I just don't really want to think too hard. And it's nice.
yeah,
And
I'm so lucky. I'm so lucky that what I love is also what I do.
yeah,
Words, I just love everything to do with words. I love putting them together into sentences. I like analyzing them. I like I like all of it. So the work side is always fun.
yeah,
But after hours, I just go to other kinds of words to relax.
yes,
At the moment, I'm reading the Terry Pratchett's Witches series again. So just for it's just it's cool. It's relaxing. It's funny. It's a good laugh, and we
yeah,
all need that.
yes, we
Life
do.
can't always be serious.
Yes, we do. And it's interesting how our flavor of genres changes depending on what's going on in our lives, right? And I think that's one of the
Mhm.
beautiful things about books is you can get what you need at different times from different themes. And I'm usually reading like two books at a time. And I'm reading a memoir, Ina Garten, The Barefoot
Oh yes.
Contessa's memoir. And I'm actually not reading any other book right now. It's just me and Ina, so it's nice. But I think I need that right now. Just one book at a time. Is there anything that we haven't talked about that you wanted to mention or highlight?
Just that. if somebody wants to become a writer, not to get put off, there's a lot of negativity around the topic. And for example, saying, oh, it's over 4,000 books uploaded a day to Amazon. And people go, how can I compete in that market? But first of all, generally, if you're writing a book, your primary motivator or purpose shouldn't really be, how am I going to make a quick buck?
Hmm.
Of course, you want to make money out of something that we do. Of course, we do. But if while you're writing and conceptualizing, all you're thinking about is the dollar signs, that's not going to make a good book.
Yeah.
You got to have you got to have some sort of other greater, deeper meaning behind it. So when I wrote the Practical Magic, and it's going to become a series, I'm writing it with a specific reader in mind, and it's not just how to turn your lover into a toad or whatever it is. It's also light-hearted, but it's quite self-help, because that's also one of my hats. And why not? Because if you're going to play in that space, get your mind right, get your
Right.
heart and soul right. And so how to do that as well. And so if you're writing anything, even if it is meant, and yes, hopefully my book will be lucrative,
Yeah.
but it's also going to help people.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
With the Congolese lady, her thing was more cathartic. It was to organize her thoughts and feelings about her past in her mind on one level. And it was also just to get her story out and to tell her story. And that for her was a major stepping stone or breakthrough that she had for herself personally. Plus, of course, it's very empowering and it boosts self-worth to go, I got my story out. I'm a published writer now. Yeah.
Yes.
So there's lots of aspects to it. But to be clear on what your purpose is and what you're
Yeah.
trying to do. Because you don't want to just add not more gumph to this massive AI book writing mill that is also happening at the moment. Everyone's getting very sick of it, and we don't. It's giving writing and books a bad name, because people go, I don't even know if this book's been written by a real person or not, and that's problematic.
That's
Yeah.
so interesting. Yeah, I hadn't really actually thought about AI in terms of writing, which I should. That's very obvious, especially with the writer strike in LA. I think it was about a year ago, and that was one of the
Yes.
pieces is not using AI. And
Mm.
it's so, as someone who uses ChatGPT, and my ChatGPT has a name and I address it by a name. and,
I,
and
I, I'm not against it at all, by the way. I
it
think
can
it's
be
great as a tool
well, it
in
can
the
be
right way.
so useful,
Mhm.
but at the same time, it is interesting. And I usually, oftentimes, I will use it to get me started. Let me put my thoughts down. Can you outline
Exactly.
this or get me that sort of thing? But I was thinking about it the other day and I actually asked it. I was like, should I be citing you on some of this, like some of this? And it was like, no, Megan, we're just happy to help or whatever. But AI is just really, it's interesting. What are your thoughts on it? I guess is a better way
I
to
have quite
ask.
a few. In fact, I actually have a blog out. So if anyone
Ooh,
wants to follow the Harvard Inc., I'm on Instagram and link. Not the blogs aren't on Insta because that's not blog friendly, but they're on LinkedIn
sure.
and Facebook and on our website and all that jazz. I've just released the first part in a 3-part series, which covers exactly this of how AI is impacting the writing industry, what to know about AI and copyright. And then the second and third one are going to be released in the next 2 weeks. And the third one is, what does AI actually do with your information? So
Yeah.
there's been a huge outcry of people taking authors' books and uploading them into ChatGPT. So
Yes.
someone will say, yes, I'm going to edit your book, or I'm going to do a developmental edit, or I'm going to do a beta read on your book. And then they take the book and they put that whole document straight into their chat. And authors going, oh, how dare they? I haven't published, and now this has breached copyright, and how's it going to affect? And that's because they don't understand. People don't really understand it. They don't understand how it works, and yes, it is a breach. of contract, quite frankly. If you haven't been given the permission to do so, you should never feed anyone's work into AI.
No.
That's very wrong. But so it's these, but the thing is, people don't understand. So it's a case of knowing what happens with the information you put in there, how safe is it, what are the copyright things to think about, and it is again a lot of moving parts, and it's a very new topic. So I really unpack it in the blogs. I
Yeah.
have lots of thoughts about it. In summary, I think it's great. Use it ethically, and there are very clear ways to use it ethically, like you are doing. So when you put an idea in, you get it starts you out, but then you still have quite a bit of using your own human brain with it as well.
Yeah.
You're not just taking it as is, word for word. And those of us who work with it a lot, you can see a piece of writing when it's been AI'd and not edited by a human afterwards. It's very obvious. It's certain tell words and all those AI emojis for a starter. You go, you didn't really edit this very much after you just said, give me a blog on blah, and you just took that and pasted it into your, I don't know, LinkedIn feed or something.
Right. Yeah, it's really interesting. The other fascinating thing about at least ChatGPT, it's not good at math. Like
no,
which is so fascinating to me. Like I have done.
You think it would be because it's a computer, right?
Correct. Yeah. I have done scenarios of, oh, I need to do XYZ. Can you give me scenarios that equate to this? And I'm like, Quill, this did not equal what I needed it to equal. It's really fascinating.
I had this situation, and I was totally floored where I had a contract for a new client, and I just said I fed it into chat and said, please just check through this content to make sure it's completely unambiguous and clear. And it gave it back to me. So I checked the wording of it to make sure that it had helped improve it quite a bit. So I was happy with that, and I checked it and did my human thing. But I didn't check the final figures because I didn't expect them to change. And chat added an extra $1,000 onto the darn total, and the client was like, "Why have you added an extra 1,000?" I'm like, "Oh, I didn't. I don't know how to explain it. I don't know how to explain this. And I wasn't expecting that." It obviously decided I should be charging more for my services.
It was just looking out for you. It was looking out for you, Mel. Yeah. If there's any little kids listening to this, which there probably aren't, but don't rely on ChatGPT for math.
Don't do math homework, and they know.
It's not going to work.
I don't know how. I mean, I believe a lot of computer programmers use it, and I'm like, if it isn't good at maths, how good can it be at computer programming? But anyway, I'm sure that they must know how to work with it better.
They must, yeah. I look forward to reading that blog post. That'll be interesting, the series of them. And what advice would you give to your younger self, knowing what you know now? And you've had such an interesting career. What advice would you give to yourself?
Follow your heart. So I didn't pursue a career in writing because I was told there was no money in it and don't do it. And here I am running a really good, sound, stable business, doing publishing support services, and it's more than paying the bills. And I'm like, I could have been doing this all this time and having so much more fun. Just think for yourself. Don't listen to too many opinions. Listen to them, but then do your own thinking.
Yeah. The comment you made about there's 4,000 public uploads every day to Amazon. And while that can sound discouraging, what I always think about is, well, people are reading it. Someone has to make it. And I'm not like super Pollyanna about things, but I hope people don't look at that and get down on it. And I hope they look at it as like it's opportunity. It
is. So as I say, it's not a zero-sum game. It doesn't matter if there are a million, billion books out there. The good ones will rise to the top.
Yeah.
Like cream on the milk. So there is that. So if your book is absolutely terrible, it might have one or two buys, and then people will not. They look at things like social proof as well. If the reviews are all bad and stuff, they're not going to buy the book.
Right.
And also, people aren't buying it, then it algorithmically, I'm so glad I can remember that word. Problem with that word, it sort of sinks to the bottom of the heap as well.
Right.
The sad thing is you can have a very good book, and that can happen too, because a lot of writers don't understand. It's not just about having, it's not just the steak, it's the sizzle. You have to know how to sell it, and you've got to, and you do have to, if you want that book to do well, you need to put a bit of effort in. Paulo Coelho, I don't know if I'm saying his
Mm-hmm.
name right, who wrote that best-selling
The
childhood book.
Alchemist.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah.
I've got ADD brain, excuse me, and it is 7 o'clock at night now, I think. So yeah, that, and he putted along with that book. That book did not sell well in the beginning. For the first few years, it just putted along, and he didn't think it was ever going to do anything. And then Oprah Winfrey picked it up.
Right.
And as an influencer, she went, "Oh, everyone, you must read this." And the next thing, bam, it was a
Yep.
bestseller.
Yep.
It was always bestseller material, but it's that also that marketing element, which is a bit of a pain for writers too, because we don't always want to be marketers, but you have to, unfortunately,
Right.
now in this current environment.
Right. And I think to what you're saying of following your heart, the work that you're doing that you love will rise to the top. And like you said, it's more than paying the bills
Don't give
now, and you
up.
love it.
Yeah. Don't give up. Be consistent and stick with it, and just don't give up, because
Yeah.
you never know. Paulo, he said he had nearly given up, and the next thing, bam, the book was just doing so well. So you
Yeah.
don't ever know. And if your book is good, just stick with it. Don't give up on your babies.
Yeah. I love that. And what I think you've alluded to it and spoken directly to it, but what do you love most about this work that you do?
Oh, there's so much, but I think maybe in terms of the actual it as a job, when my authors actually hold their book for the first time
Yeah.
and they take it out of the box and it's fresh from the printers, and they pick up that book and they see their words in print, and they're happy. It's just such a feel good moment. I think that's my favorite part, actually, to be
That's
honest.
really special. Yeah, that's really special. And this has been such a fun conversation. How can people find you?
Oh, Harvard Inc., which, I mean, Melanie Harvard is my name, so I was lucky to be able to use it. It sounds very intellectual, right?
Yes.
I think it was my I don't know how many greats grandfather and his wife, mainly his wife, funnily enough, who founded Harvard University.
Really?
So it's a straight line heritage thing, and maybe I do have some of those brains, I'm not sure.
I
But
think you do. I think you do.
it's not important. It's not that important. But Harvard Inc., that's my company. And if you do a search for it, Inc., obviously INK, you'll come up with all our socials and all that. And we're around. We're quite active on the various platforms and things like that. And we have some great reviews, which just makes me so happy, because clients have taken the time to go and leave some happy, nice words. I'm like, thank you.
That's
So
great.
yeah.
Wonderful. We'll have all of your information in the show notes. And this has
Thank
been
you.
such a fun conversation. Thank you for making time at the
With
end of
you.
your day.
Thank you
And
for including me and letting me be part of your whole thing. That's so cool.
of course, and you can come back anytime. I can't wait to read. It's Belladonna Dark Moon is
Dark
your,
Moon.
I love it. I
Yeah.
can't wait. I'm going to look it up. That's
Thank
great.
you. Thanks, Megan.
Wonderful.
Enjoy the
Thank
rest of
you.
your day.
You too.
Okay.
Thanks for listening to Wait, What Do You Do Again? For more information about today's guest, or if you'd like to be on the show, please visit megdeford.com. See you next time.